Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, where we give you your first perspective on things and how we see them. Let's just get into it. Let's talk about Kawhi Leonard for a minute here. So, where do we begin? As you all know, Kawhi Leonard is my favorite player, currently playing basketball, although Kobe is my favorite player of all time. But Kawhi Leonard has had a pretty interesting career. Up until this point. He's a two-time Defensive Player of the Year, multiple-time All-Star, I think four-time All-Star, led the league in steals, I believe it was in 2015, and he won an NBA title 2 years ago with the Toronto Raptors, capping off his second NBA title with his second Finals MVP in a very dramatic fashion, given the fact of how he ended his run in San Antonio. And as y'all know, the reason Kawhi Leonard left San Antonio, some people speculate to say, hey, listen, the reason this guy left San Antonio was probably because, he just got bored there. He thought that playing under the regime of the San Antonio Spurs and Greg Popovich is a little bit too, melancholy, a little bit too boring. So he didn't want to be there anymore. So some people said a couple of seasons ago that when him and the team had a falling out, that he didn't want to play there anymore. Skip Bayless said he quit on the team and all of these different things. Now, we all know that Kawhi Leonard is a great player, but there's one knock that everyone has on him in the NBA, right? It's not that, yes, he had a poor Game 7 and they lost they lost to the Denver Nuggets in a 7-game series, being up 3-1 when they shouldn't have lost that series. But other great players have lost before, right? Other great players have blown leads before. That's not the issue. The issue with Kawhi Leonard is his load management, right? Now, all of this started from the fact that when he was with the Spurs, if I go back and I look at Kawhi Leonard's playing history with the San Antonio Spurs, in 2016-2017 season, the guy played 74 of the available, he played 74 of the available 82 games. The following season, or at the end of that season, if y'all remember, when they were playing against the Golden State Warriors and Zaza Pachulia stuck his foot under his ankle and he fell down, that's when the injury bug hit him. And at that point, he was injured, and some people were saying that he had some problems with his knees. So there was this whole kind of thing going back and forth with him and the team in the off season. Then what happened? He apparently had got some treatment, did some surgery, whatever the case was, came back the following season and only played 9 games. For the entire season, he only played 9 games. And for the remainder of the season, Kawhi Leonard was nowhere to be found. Some people were like, what happened to this guy for the 73 games or 72, whatever it is, games that were available? He didn't play, right? And him and the Spurs just had a complete falling out. Then he left. He went to the Toronto Raptors and decided, hey, listen, this organization wants me. And I guess the management and all of them took him under all of the different sort of stipulations that he had in his contract. And he ended up playing 60 games with the Toronto Raptors. And some people around the league were griping and saying, hey, listen, why is this guy not playing games? But some people were saying, hey, listen, the guy's injured. And in fact, in the playoffs, when he got there, especially against, I believe it was the Milwaukee Bucks, there were certain times where you saw he looked ginger, jumping up and down and landing on his knees, and especially the dunk that he had over Giannis, you saw him kind of like, wincing and all of this stuff. So some people say, is this guy even healthy, right? So there was that kind of storyline behind Kawhi Leonard. But then he went to the Clippers, went to play with the Los Angeles Clippers, and to everyone's understanding, I think during the offseason, we all thought that, okay, listen, this guy had healed and he's healthy now. And when he got to, when he got to the Clippers, a team that had so much expectations on them, he was falling into a team, yes, that the core of the team had been together more or less, although they had traded away some pieces, or some pieces have left, Danilo Gallinari and Tobias Harris and others had left the team. Excuse me, I'm just dealing with a cough here. So he was implemented into a new team alongside Paul George, a team that had already had his culture in place, hard workers, go out there and fight every single night, and they were just all about, putting in the work. And Kawhi Leonard, for the season of the available, 72 games or so, he played 57 games. And in some cases, He would play games, he would look completely healthy, and in the next game he wasn't there. It turns out the lack of games that Kawhi Leonard played ended up biting the Clippers in the butt at the very end. In some cases, you would see Kawhi Leonard play a stretch of games, then Paul George would sit down. Then Paul George would start playing, and then Kawhi Leonard would sit down. And I'll be asking myself, are these guys injured or is something wrong with them? Now, Paul George you can understand because Paul George is going to play. But Kawhi Leonard, for the last 2 years, has had this history of not playing games. In fact, in his entire career, there has not been one season where Kawhi Leonard has played 82 games at any point. First year in his career, 64. Next year, 58, 66, 64, 72, 74, 9, 60, 57. And with the Clippers, what they need more than anything, well, they need a lot of things, but one of the things that they need is to build their team chemistry. That's one of the things that the Clippers need this season, right? Him missing games actually hurt the team. And the most interesting thing about it all, or the most perplexing thing rather, is after the restart in the Orlando bubble, for those 8 remaining games, Kawhi Leonard played every single game. He played all 8 games. And I think in some cases there were some back-to-backs, if I'm mistaken. Oh, no, for the exception, I think he missed the last game. Excuse me, after they had clinched. He missed the last game, if I'm not mistaken. Because they were like, okay, we're going to the playoffs, which is understandable, right? Many players do that, so no one is going to hold that against him. But this season, given the fact that the season is just around the corner, literally, the season is about to start in December, Kawhi Leonard needs to play, in my opinion, at least 62 of the available 72 games. It needs to happen. It needs to happen because what's happening is, number one, it's hurting the team chemistry. Number two, is causing people out there to criticize you unnecessarily. They're saying, wait a minute, does this guy really want to play all the games? Listen, Nick Wright, I don't agree with Nick Wright on most of the things that he says about basketball. Because some of the things he says are outlandish, especially some of his Kobe Bryant commentary. That's where me and him parted ways a long time ago. But on the issue of Kawhi Leonard not playing games, he has a point. Kawhi has to play these games. The Clippers have some chemistry issues. I don't think the team with their full roster played together more than 25 times for the entire season. That is inexcusable. They need to play more games together, and he needs to be the one that spearheads that team. He needs to be the one that sets the example. If injuries happen, no one is holding that against you. No one will hold that against you, and injuries occur. Patrick Beverley got injured at certain points in the season. What's the shooter that comes off the bench? I forgot his name. Landry Shamet, he got injured at certain points. That's fine. People get injured. But the whole load management thing and all of this stuff, not now. Because now the team needs you. And in fact, they're going to be playing 10 less games overall. So 60 plus games is absolutely doable, given the fact that the team had a long hiatus due to the global pandemic and the fact that the bubble, you weren't there for that long and you've been off for the past 2 months. So Kawhi Leonard needs to play more games. He's my favorite player in basketball, but this year things need to be a little bit different. So what I want to know from you guys is quite simple. Do you agree with me that, listen, Kawhi Leonard, needs to play at least 62 games to put the Clippers in a better position of contention this season, especially from a chemistry standpoint, and therefore it causes people to not unnecessarily criticize you. And people, you can say at the end of the day, hey, listen, I put in my best effort. I played as many games as I could, and you know what? If we didn't get the results we set for ourselves, that's one thing. But don't give people reason to criticize you, and the team needs to build their chemistry. And I think and I hope that Tyronn Lue can implement some of these things that I'm asking for with the Clippers this season, because they can ill afford to have a situation where Kawhi Leonard plays like 45 games this season. It can't happen, because what happens if they reduce the season to 40 games? You're going to play, 30 games? So no, it can't happen. So that's just my opinions on that. And that's what I think about that.